Greetings. Greetings, and welcome to Storytime with Dr. Helen Tinsley. I'm happy to be here with you today on this blessed day of June 15th. So, this is a very special day for two reasons. One, this is the day that my beloved mother, Helen Tinsley, transitioned at the age of 89. So, in honor of Evelyn Tinsley, I share these stories with you today. I miss my mom. She taught us many valuable lessons, and her memory lives on. And I am working on a book entitled Mother Wit, which is a tribute to my mother. And June 15th is also a very happy occasion because it's also the birthday of my oldest granddaughter, Anaya, and she is 15 years old today. So happy, blessed birthday, Anaya Lachelle. Grammy loves you. So, welcome to Story Time, and we're continuing with our journey through stories from the People Could Fly, American Black folk tales told by Virginia Hamilton. So, let's begin with song. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. In the stories that I read every day. Welcome. So, this is the last chapter in The People Could Fly, and it's entitled Carrying the Runaways and Other Slave Tales of Freedom. And the first story in this chapter is Carrying the Runaways. Never had any idea of carrying the runaway slaves over the river. Even though I was right there on the plantation, right by that big river, it never got in my mind to do something like that. But one night, the woman whose house I had gone courting to said she knew a pretty girl wanted to cross the river and would I take her. Well, I met the girl and she was awful pretty. And soon the woman was telling me how to get across, how to go, and when to leave. Well, I had to think about it. But each day that girl or the woman would come around, ask me would I row the girl across the river to a place called Ripley. Well, I finally said I would. And one night I went over to the woman's house. My owner trusted me and let me come and go as I pleased, long as I didn't try to read or write anything. For writing and reading was forbidden to slaves. Now, I had heard about the other side of the river from the other slaves, but I thought it was just like the side where we lived on the plantation. I thought there were slaves and masters over there too, and overseers and rawhide whips they used on us. That's why I was so scared. I thought I'd land the girl over there and some overseer didn't know us would beat us for being out at night. They could do that, you know. Well, I did it. Oh, it was a long rowing time in the cold with me worrying. But pretty soon I see a light way up high. Then I remember the woman told me to watch for a light. Told me to row to the light, which is what I did. And when I got to it, there were two men. They reached down and grabbed the girl. Then one of the men took me by the arm, said, "You about hungry?" And if he hadn't been holding me, I would have fell out of that rowboat. Well, that was my first trip. I was scared for a long time after that, but pretty soon I got over it, as other folks asked me to take them across the river. Two and three at a time, I'd take them. I got used to making 3 or 4 trips every month. Now it was funny. I never saw my passengers after that first girl because I took them on the nights when the moon was not showing, it was cloudy, and I always met them in the open or in a house with no light. So I never saw them, couldn't recognize them, and couldn't describe them. But I would say to them, "What you say?" And they would say the password sounded like Manar. Seemed the word came from the Bible somewhere, but I didn't know. And they would have to say that word before I took them across. Well, there in Ripley was a man named Mr. Rankins. The rest was John, I think. He had a station there for escaping slaves. Ohio was a free state, I found out. So once they got across, Mr. Rankins would set them to see to them. We went at night so we could continue back for more and be sure no slave catchers would follow us there. Mr. Rankins had a big light about 30 feet high up, and it burned all night. It meant freedom for slaves if they could get to that bright flame. I worked hard and almost got caught. I've been rowing fugitives for almost 4 years. It was in 1863, and it was a night I carried 12 running aways across the river to Mr. Rankin's. I stepped out the boat back in Kentucky, and they were after me. Didn't know how they found out. But the slave catchers didn't know they were on my trail. I ran away from the plantation and all who I knew there. I lived in the fields and in the woods, even in caves. Sometimes I slept up in the tree branches on a hay pile. I couldn't get across the river now, it was watched so closely. Finally, I did get across. Late one night, me and my wife went. I had gone back to the plantation to get her. Mr. Rankins had him a bell by this time, along with the light. We were rowing and rowing. We could see the light and hear the bell, but it seemed we weren't getting any closer. It took forever, it seemed. That was because we were so scared and it was so dark, and we knew we could get caught and never get gone. Well, we did get there. We pulled up there and went on to freedom. It was only a few months before all the slaves were freed. We didn't stay on at Ripley. We went on to Detroit because I wasn't taking any chances. I have children and grandchildren now. Well, the bigger ones didn't care so much to hear about those times, but the little ones, well, they never get tired of hearing about how their grandpa brought emancipation to loads of slaves he could touch and feel in the dark, but never ever see. And that's the story of Carrying the Runaways. Now, Carrying the Runaways is a reality tale of freedom, a true slave narrative. The former slave who first told the tale was an actual person, Arnold Gadsden, a slave in Kentucky. His story of rowing runaways across the Ohio River represents thousands of such stories of escape to freedom. The abolitionists who helped the runaways once they were across the river was John Rankin, a Presbyterian minister and a Southerner who lived in Ripley, Ohio. The town is still there, situated on the great river. A rickety wood staircase leads up Liberty Hill from Ohio River bottomlands to the underground station house of the Rankin family. From 1825 to 1865, more than 2,000 slaves were sheltered at the house and guided on by the family. Today, the Rankin House is a state memorial open to the public from April through October. Another fugitive, Levi Perry, born a slave, crossed the Ohio River into freedom with his mother about 1854. They were rescued by John Rankin and were taken in and taken care of at the house with the light. Years later, every 6 months or so, Levi Perry would settle his 10 children around him and would begin. Now listen, children, I want to tell you about slavery and how my mother and I ran away from it, so you'll know and never let it happen to you. This tale was told to me recently by my mother, Eddie Bell Perry Hamilton, who was 92 years old and Levi Perry's oldest daughter. So one thing I want to say is in the description, they refer to the black people as slaves, and we were actually not slaves. We were enslaved. We were free people and African people that they enslaved. So when you say the term slave, it really doesn't give the full meaning of the condition we were in. We were not a slave, we were enslaved. At any rate, that is the story of Carrying the Runaways. And the rest of the stories in this collection are really tales of freedom. And so I look forward to sharing the rest with you. And I hope you enjoyed that story from The People Could Fly. And I hope you have a great day and a great afternoon and do something to relax yourself and keep your mind stimulated. And to those watching, my faithful viewers, Nadine and Aunt Carol and Carlton, hello. I hope you all are all well and I hope you enjoyed the story. You're very welcome. Okay. See you tomorrow. Peace.